I've spent the last 15 years trying to forget my childhood. Not the normal kind of forgetting, the merciful erosion of time that softens hard edges and blurs faces. I mean the active kind. The kind where you wake up at 3 in the morning and force yourself to recite baseball statistics or state capitals or anything that will crowd out the memories trying to surface. The kind where you avoid mirrors because sometimes, when you're tired, you see a 14-year-old boy staring back at you with questions you can't answer. My name is Evan Mercer, and I'm 33 years old. For most of my adult life, people have asked me where I'm from, and I've learned to say, nowhere specific, or all over, really. It's easier than explaining that I grew up in a town that wished I didn't exist. Easier than watching their faces change when they recognize the name from old news articles they half remember reading. Easier than admitting that there are entire years of my life that exist only in police reports and court transcripts. 3 days ago, I received a letter. Not an email or a text, an actual letter. The envelope yellowed at the edges, postmarked from Coventry, Maine. Inside was a single sentence written in handwriting I didn't recognize. They're happening again, and everyone thinks it's you. I should have burned it. I should have blocked the number that followed up with increasingly frantic voicemails from people whose names I barely remembered. I should have stayed in my apartment in Portland, kept my job at the insurance company, continued my careful routine of being nobody from nowhere. Instead, I'm driving north on Route 2, watching the towns get smaller and the trees grow closer to the road. My hands are steady on the wheel. I make sure of that, forcing myself to eat breakfast even though my stomach felt packed with stones. The radio crackles with static between stations, and I don't bother trying to find one that comes in clear. The silence feels appropriate. 15 years ago, my father was arrested for the murder of 4 children. The trial lasted 3 months. I sat in that courtroom every day, watching him refuse to meet my eyes, listening to evidence that seemed to pile up like snow until it buried any possibility of doubt. He was convicted. He's still serving his sentence at the Maine State Prison. And now, apparently, it's starting again. I'm not sure what I expect to find when I get back to Coventry. Answers, maybe. Or proof that whatever happened back then had nothing to do with me. But deep down, and the place I usually keep locked tight, I know the real reason I'm going back. I need to remember what I've spent 15 years trying to forget. Coventry looks smaller than I remembered. The main streets stretch for maybe 6 blocks. Half the storefronts empty with soap-streaked windows and faded for lease signs that had probably been there for years. The pharmacy was still open, and the grocery store, and a diner called Mabel's that used to serve blueberry pancakes on Sundays. I wasn't sure if I was relieved or disappointed that some things had survived. I parked in front of the town hall, a brick building that had always seemed imposing when I was young, but now just looked worn down and tired. My car was the only one on the street, except for a rusted pickup truck 2 blocks down. It was 2 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. There should have been more people. The first person I saw was Dwight Brennan, who used to run the hardware store. He was coming out of the post office with a bundle of mail under his arm. He looked older, his red hair gone mostly gray, but I recognized the way he walked, that slight hitch in his left leg from a logging accident decades ago. He saw me at the same moment I raised my hand to wave. His face did something strange, not quite a flinch, but a tightening around the eyes and mouth, like he'd bitten into something spoiled. He turned and walked in the other direction, quickly, without looking back. I stood there for a moment, my hand still half raised, feeling like an idiot. The door to Mabel's opened and a woman stepped out. Laurel Quinn. I recognized her instantly, even though she must have been in her 60s now. She'd been our neighbor, had brought us casserole after my father's arrest and disposable aluminum pans she never asked to have returned. She'd been kind when kindness was rare. "Mrs. Quinn," I said, starting toward her. She stopped on the sidewalk. For a second, I thought she might actually speak to me. Then she looked past me, as if I were transparent, and walked to her car with quick, purposeful steps. She got in, started the engine, and drove away. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not surprise. I'd known what to expect. But knowing something intellectually and experiencing it are different things. The door to the grocery store opened. An older man in a flannel shirt came out carrying a bag. Hamish Torbert, who'd coached Little League when I was in 3rd grade. He glanced at me and I saw recognition flash across his face. He turned around and went back inside. I counted to 10, then to 20. The street stayed empty except for me. This was a mistake. I should get back in my car, drive the 3 hours to Portland, pretend I never received that letter. Whatever was happening in Coventry, whether there really were new murders or just paranoid people seeing patterns where none existed, it wasn't my problem anymore. But as I turned back toward my car, I saw her. A woman, maybe in her late 20s, standing in the doorway of what used to be the old bookstore. She wasn't looking away. She was staring directly at me with an expression I couldn't read. Not hostility exactly, but not welcome either. Something more complicated. She raised one hand, slowly, and beckoned me forward. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to leave, to stop trying to force myself back into a place that had ejected me like a toxin. But I'd driven 3 hours to be here, and this woman, whoever she was the first person willing to acknowledge my existence. I crossed the street toward her. She disappeared inside the bookstore before I reached the door, leaving it open behind her like an invitation or a trap. The bookstore smelled like dust and old paper, familiar in a way that made my throat tighten. The shelves are mostly empty now, gaps where books used to be like missing teeth in an old smile. What remained looked picked over. Romance novels with cracked spines, outdated travel guides, a few self-help books from the 90s promising to fix your life in 7 easy steps. The woman stood behind what used to be the checkout counter. She was younger than I'd first thought, with dark hair pulled back and a practical ponytail, and the kind of pale skin that suggested she spent most of her time indoors. She wore jeans and a flannel shirt that looked like it had been through too many wash cycles. "You're Evan Mercer," she said. Not a question. "I am." "I'm Willa Donahue. I moved here 2 years ago." She paused, watching my face. "After everything happened with your family, then you know why everyone out there won't look at me." "I know what they think happened." She pulled out a folder from behind the counter, the kind you'd get at an office supply store. "I also know what's happening now." She opened the folder and spread several newspaper clippings across the counter. I recognized the Bangor Daily News masthead, the Coventry Chronicle's smaller font. The headlines made my stomach drop. "Body of local teen found near Birch Creek. Second death in 3 weeks shakes small town. Police investigate possible connection to 2008 murders." I picked up the most recent one. The article was dated 4 days ago. A 16-year-old girl named Piper LaFlamme found in the woods near the old quarry. Cause of death still under investigation, but the article mentioned suspicious circumstances and similarities to previous cases. "There have been 3, Willa said, her voice careful, measured. "First was Nathan Sear, 17, found in the state park 6 weeks ago. Then Dulcie Brennan, Dwight Brennan's granddaughter, 3 weeks after that. And now Piper." The names meant nothing to me. I'd left when I was 14. These kids would have been infants or not yet born. But the pattern was sickeningly familiar. "How?" I asked. "They won't release details, But people talk. The bodies were found in wooded areas, away from trails. No signs of struggle. No obvious cause of death that anyone will admit to. Just like before. Just like the 4 children 15 years ago. Toby Fletcher, 9 years old. Ainsley Prescott, 11. The Yates twins, Corbin and Declan, both 8. All found in the woods. All looking peaceful, like they'd simply fallen asleep and forgotten to wake up. Your father was convicted, Willa continued. But he never explained how he did it. Never gave details. The medical examiner couldn't determine a clear cause of death for any of the victims. Toxicology came back clean. No trauma. They just stopped. So people think I'm copying whatever he did. People think you helped him. She said it flat, without judgment. You were 14, old enough. And there were rumors back then. Witnesses who saw you near some of the areas where bodies were found. Your father wouldn't talk, wouldn't defend himself. But he also wouldn't implicate you. The prosecutor couldn't make anything stick to you specifically. I remembered the interviews, the gentle-voiced detectives who asked me the same questions 50 different ways. Where were you on this date? Do you remember seeing this person? Did your father ever take you camping? I remembered my mother's lawyer telling them I was a minor. I was traumatized. Leave him alone. I remembered thinking I should be able to help, should be able to remember something useful. I couldn't remember anything at all. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Willa looked at me for a long moment. Because I don't think your father killed those children. I've read every piece of evidence from the trial. I've talked to people who were here. Something about the whole thing doesn't fit right. That's not what the jury thought. The jury needed someone to blame. Your father gave them that. She tapped the newspaper clippings. But whoever's doing this now, they know something. They're following the exact same pattern. Same types of victims. Same locations. Same lack of evidence. Either your father had an accomplice who's starting again, or... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Or my father wasn't guilty to begin with, and the real killer had just been waiting. Willa offered to drive me to the locations where the bodies had been found. I followed her in my own car instead. Some instinct told me I might need to leave quickly, and I didn't want to depend on anyone else for that. The first site was near Birch Creek, about 4 miles outside of town. The road turned from asphalt to gravel, then to dirt that looked like it hadn't been maintained in years. We parked where the road ended and walked the rest of the way. The yellow police tape was still there, tied between trees, already starting to fade from the sun. Someone had left flowers, cheap carnations from the grocery store, wilting in their plastic wrapper. A teddy bear slumped against a tree trunk, its fur matted from rain. This is where they found Piper, Willa said. I looked around. Dense pine trees, the ground covered in old needles that muffled sound. The creek itself was about 50 feet away, barely visible through the undergrowth. It was the kind of place teenagers came to drink beer and pretend they were somewhere more interesting than Coventry, Maine. Did you know her? I asked. Not well. She worked weekends at the grocery store. Quiet kid. Wanted to study marine biology. Planned to apply to UMaine next year. Willa crouched down near the flowers. Her parents are convinced your father had help. They've been calling the state police, demanding they investigate you. I walked a slow circle around the site, trying to see it the way an investigator would. But I wasn't an investigator. I processed insurance claims for water damage and car accidents. I had no idea what I was looking for. Do you remember the places where they found the children back then? Willa asked. I opened my mouth to say no, then stopped. Because I did remember. Not clearly, not like watching a movie, but in fragments. The way light filtered through trees at a certain angle. The smell of pine sap and damp earth. The sound of water moving over stones. Some of it, I said. The state park where Nathan was found. That's where they found Toby Fletcher in 2008. This spot, Birch Creek, this is where the Yates twins were. The information hit me wrong, like a note played slightly flat. I can't be right. I have the police reports. I can show you. No, I stopped, trying to organize thoughts that felt slippery, hard to hold. The twins were found near the quarry. I remember because it was close to our house and my mother wouldn't let me outside for a week after. Willa pulled out her phone and scrolled through photos. She held up a scanned police report, the text small but readable. Corbin and Declan Yates, discovered June 14th, 2008. Approximate location, she zoomed in. Birch Creek access point, 2.3 miles from town center. I stared at the screen. The words were clear, the date was right, but my memory insisted something else entirely. Maybe you're thinking of where they lived, Willa offered. The Yates family had a house near the quarry. Maybe. But I didn't believe it. My memory felt solid, certain. The twins near the quarry. I could picture the chain-link fence, the warning signs, the way the afternoon sun had made the water look black and deep. We drove to the state park next. This place I definitely remembered. Acres of hiking trails, camping sites, a ranger station that was only staffed during summer months. My father used to bring me here to fish when I was young, before everything fell apart. The area where Nathan Sears' body had been found was off-trail, deep enough that you'd have to know where you were going or be seriously lost. More police tape, more flowers. Someone had carved, "Remember Nathan," into a tree trunk. Was he found on the trail or off it? I asked. Off, about 100 yards from the main path. Hunter found him while tracking a deer. I looked at the surrounding trees, the way they clustered thick in some areas and thinned in others. How would a teenager end up this far off the trail? Police theory is someone led him here, or he came to meet someone. I walked toward the tree line, following what looked like it might have once been an animal path. The ground was soft, still muddy from recent rain. No footprints visible now, but there must have been some when Nathan was found. That's when I saw it. Carved into a birch tree about chest height. A symbol I recognized instantly, even though I couldn't have said why. It looked like a stick figure, but wrong. Arms too long, legs bent at strange joints. A circular head with marks that might have been eyes, or might have been something else entirely. My vision went fuzzy at the edges. Evan? Willa's voice sounded far away. I reached out to touch the carving, and my hand looked strange to me, like I was seeing it through water. The trees seemed to tilt, and I had the sudden, vertiginous sensation that I'd been here before. Not as an adult, as a child. I was 14 years old, and I was cutting this symbol into the tree with my pocket knife. My hands were smaller. The knife felt heavy. Someone was standing behind me, watching. But when I tried to turn and see who it was, the memory scattered like smoke. Evan, are you okay? I blinked. Willa was right next to me, her hand on my arm. My palm was pressed against the carved bark, and I pulled it away quickly. Do you recognize this? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She leaned in to look. It's just graffiti. Kids probably carved it years ago. It's not graffiti. What is it then? I didn't know. Or, I did know. Somewhere deep in a part of my brain I couldn't access, like a word on the tip of my tongue that refuses to arrive. We should go, I said. We drove to the third location, but I barely processed it. My mind kept circling back to that symbol, to the memory that wasn't quite a memory. By the time we returned to town, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange that looked too cheerful for how I felt. Where are you staying? Willa asked. I hadn't thought that far ahead. I'll find a motel. The only motel is the Pine Rest, 6 miles north, but I don't think they'll rent to you. Word travels fast here. She hesitated. I have a spare room. My apartment's above the bookstore. It's not much, but it's private. I should have said no. I didn't know this woman. She could be setting me up, could be planning to call the police the moment I fell asleep. Could be anything. But I was exhausted and my head hurt, and the thought of driving around looking for a place that would take me felt overwhelming. Just for tonight, I said. Just for tonight, she agreed. As I followed her car back toward Main Street, I caught sight of myself in the rearview mirror. For just a second, I could have sworn I saw someone else looking back. A 14-year-old boy with frightened eyes and blood on his hands. Then I blinked, and it was just me again. I woke up standing in my childhood bedroom, not Willa's spare room above the bookstore, my actual childhood bedroom, and the house where I grew up, 3 miles outside of town on Sawmill Road. The house I hadn't set foot in since the day after my father's arrest. The panic came in waves. I was wearing my jeans and t-shirt from yesterday, my shoes still on. Moonlight came through the window. No curtains anymore, just empty frames. The room was stripped bare except for a few pieces of furniture too heavy to move. The built-in bookshelf, the radiator, a dresser with drawers that hung open like slack mouths. I checked my watch. 3:47 a.m. My car keys were in my pocket. I pulled them out and they felt slick, though from what I couldn't say. My hands were shaking. I had no memory of leaving Willa's apartment. The last thing I remembered clearly was lying down on the narrow bed in her spare room, staring at water stains on the ceiling while my mind churned through everything I'd seen that day. The symbol on the tree, the way my memories didn't line up with the police reports, the feeling that I'd been standing in those woods before, a long time ago. And now I was here. I left the bedroom and walked through the house. Moonlight made everything look washed out, colorless. The kitchen still had the same linoleum floor, cracked and peeling now. The living room was empty except for rectangles of darker carpet where furniture used to sit. Someone had spray-painted words on one wall. I didn't stop to read them. The front door was open. I stood in the doorway, looking out at my car parked in the overgrown driveway. I'd driven here. I must have. But I couldn't remember getting in the car, couldn't remember the route, couldn't remember parking. Just a blank space where the last 4 hours should have been. This had happened before. The thought arrived complete, certain. Not recently, not in my adult life, but when I was younger. Times when I'd lose minutes or hours, when I'd find myself in places I didn't remember going, doing things I couldn't recall starting. My mother had taken me to doctors. They'd ask questions about stress and trauma and whether I felt safe at home. The test came back normal. Dissociation, one doctor had said. His mind is protecting him from something. But from what? I got in my car and drove back to Willa's apartment. My phone showed 2 missed calls from her number and a text. Where are you? Your door was open. You're gone. I texted back. Sorry, couldn't sleep. Went for a drive, back in 10. She was waiting for me when I climbed the stairs to her apartment. She stood in the doorway wearing sweatpants and an oversized sweater, her expression caught between worried and angry. You can't just disappear like that, she said. Not with everything that's happening. I know. I'm sorry. Where were you really? I could have lied, should have lied. Instead, I said, my old house. I don't remember driving there. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she stepped aside to let me in. We sat at her small kitchen table. She made coffee even though it was 4 a.m, and I wrapped my hands around the mug just to have something to hold on to. How often does this happen? She asked. It hasn't. Not since I was a teenager. But it happened then. I nodded. My mother thought it was stress. The trial, the media attention, kids at school treating me like I was radioactive. I'd lose time, minutes, sometimes hours. I saw therapists. They gave me medication that made me feel like I was walking through fog. Eventually it stopped. When did it stop? I had to think after the trial ended, after we moved away. Willow was quiet for a moment, her fingers drumming against her coffee mug. The prosecution tried to establish that you were with your father during some of the murders. They couldn't prove it because you couldn't remember where you were on those days. I was 14. Most 14-year-olds can't tell you where they were 3 months ago. But most 14-year-olds don't have gaps in their memory during the exact times children were going missing. The coffee tasted like ash in my mouth. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe there's a reason your father wouldn't talk. Maybe he was protecting you. From what? The prosecution? They already investigated me. They found nothing. What, maybe from yourself? I stood up, nearly knocking over my mug. You think I killed those kids? I think you might not remember if you did. The words hit me like cold water. I wanted to be angry, wanted to tell her she was insane, wanted to walk out. But I couldn't, because part of me, the part that had woken up in an empty house with no memory of how I got there, wondered if she might be right. I would remember something like that, I said, but my voice sounded thin even in my ears. Would you? Would you? You just lost 4 hours tonight. You were a traumatized kid 15 years ago. The mind can wall off things too painful to process. I sat back down. My legs felt weak. If what you're saying is true, then why is it happening again? I'm not killing anyone now. Are you sure? The question hung in the air between us. I thought about the times I'd woken up tired in Portland, my clothes muddy, my car with extra miles on the odometer that I couldn't account for. I'd always told myself I was sleepwalking, stress from work, nothing serious. But Coventry was 3 hours away, and the murders had started 6 weeks ago. I need to see my father, I said. Willa didn't argue. The main state prison was a 2-hour drive south. We left at dawn, the sky turning from black to gray to pale blue. Willa drove while I sat in the passenger seat and tried to organize my thoughts into something coherent. I hadn't seen my father since I was 17. 3 years after the trial, 3 years into a sentence. I'd gone with my mother, one last attempt at getting answers he'd refused to give in court. He'd sat across from us in the visiting room and said nothing, just looked at us with empty eyes until the guard told us time was up. My mother died 2 years later. Aneurysm, sudden and complete. I didn't tell my father. I didn't know if he'd even care. The prison was exactly as I remembered it. Concrete and razor wire and the institutional smell of cleaning products trying to mask other smells. We went through security, surrendered our phones and keys, filled out forms. You're not on his approved visitor list, the guard told me. I'm his son. Still need approval. Can take a few days. I'll wait, I said. The guard looked at me, then at his computer screen, then back at me. Hang on. He made a phone call, talked quietly for a few minutes, then hung up. He says he'll see you. 30 minutes. They led me to a visiting room, not the open area with tables and vending machines I remembered, but a small room with 2 chairs separated by reinforced glass, a phone on each side. Willa had to wait outside. They brought my father in. He'd aged more than 15 years would account for. His hair had gone completely white, his face creased deep around the eyes and mouth. He'd lost weight, his prison uniform hanging loose on a frame that used to be solid. But his eyes were the same, dark brown, steady, calm, even now. He picked up the phone on his side, I picked up mine. "You shouldn't have come back," he said. His voice sounded exactly as I remembered it. "People are dying again." "I know. They think I'm doing it." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Are you?" The question took my breath away. "What?" "Are you killing them, Evan?" "No. Jesus, no. How can you even..." "Then you need to leave. Tonight. Don't go back to Coventry. Don't talk to anyone. Just go. I need to know what happened 15 years ago." "No," he said. "You don't." "Did you kill those children?" He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they looked wet. "I did what I had to do." That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. I wanted to reach through the glass and shake him. Someone is copying what you did, following the exact same pattern. If you tell me how you killed them, maybe I can figure out who's doing it now. "You can't," he said. "Because I didn't kill them, Evan. You did." The room tilted. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles went white. "You were sick," he continued, his voice breaking. "Something was wrong with you. You'd disappear for hours, and when you came back, you wouldn't remember where you'd been. I tried to help you, tried to keep you close. But then Toby Fletcher went missing, and I found you in the woods with dirt under your fingernails and blood on your shoes. And you didn't remember anything." "No," I said. "No, that's not. I cleaned you up. I hid the evidence. And when Ainsley Prescott died, and then the twins, I knew it wouldn't stop. So I confessed. I made sure the evidence pointed to me. I protected you." "You're lying." "I wish I was." He pressed his palm against the glass. "But whoever's killing these kids now, they know what you did. They're trying to wake that part of you up again. And if you don't leave, they're going to succeed." The guard knocked on the door. Time was up. My father stood, and I wanted to scream at him to sit back down, to take it all back, to tell me he was lying. But he just looked at me with infinite sadness and said, "I love you. I always have. That's why I took the blame." Then he was gone, and I was alone in a room that suddenly felt too small to breathe in. Willa drove us back to Coventry in silence. I stared out the window and watched the trees blur past, my father's words echoing in my head like a recording stuck on repeat. "You did." 2 words that had rewritten my entire life. When we got back to her apartment, I went straight to the spare room and shut the door. I needed to think, needed the process, needed to decide if I believed him. But instead, I just sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my hands. These hands had held insurance forms and coffee cups and grocery bags. Normal, boring, adult hands. Could they have also held a child's life and squeezed it away? Could my 14-year-old hands have done that 4 separate times and left no trace in my conscious memory? There was a knock at the door. "Evan?" Willa's voice. "The police are here. They want to talk to you." My stomach dropped. I opened the door to find 2 officers standing in Willa's living room. One was Hamish Torbert's son. I recognized the sharp jawline and the way he held himself too straight, like he was always at attention. The other was a woman I didn't know, maybe in her 30s, with her hair pulled back, severe and tight. "Evan Mercer," the woman said. "That's me." "I'm Sheriff Keogh. This is Deputy Torbert. We'd like to ask you some questions about your whereabouts last night." "Last night? I was here, sleeping." "All night?" Torbert asked. His tone suggested he already knew the answer. I glanced at Willa. She looked tense, her arms crossed. "I went for a drive around 4 a.m., I said. Couldn't sleep." "Where did you drive to?" "Just around. I'm not familiar with the area anymore." "Did you happen to drive past the Coventry Cemetery?" The question felt like a trap. "No. Why?" Sheriff Keogh pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. A girl, maybe 15, with red hair and freckles. School photo, the kind with a cloudy blue background. "This is Zara Hollis. She was reported missing last night around 9 p.m. Her body was found this morning near the cemetery." "You want to tell me again where you were?" The room felt too small. "I was here. Willa can confirm." "Ms. Donahue says you left at some point during the night. She doesn't know exactly when because she was asleep." "I went for a drive at 4. The body must have been there before that." "Medical examiner estimates time of death between 2 and 5 a.m., Torbert said. Right near window." "I didn't kill anyone." "Your father said the same thing for 2 years before he finally confessed," Sheriff Keogh said. "Funny coincidence that these murders started up again right after you visited him in prison last month." "I didn't visit him last month. I haven't seen him in over a decade." She showed me another photo on her phone. Graining security footage from the prison. A man signing in at the visitor's desk. The angle was wrong to see his face clearly, but the timestamp read September 23rd, 5 weeks ago, 2 days before Nathan Sears' body was found. "That's not me." "Really?" "Because the signature says Evan Mercer, and the ID he showed was yours." I felt the floor shift beneath me. Someone stole my identity. "That's convenient." Torbert moved closer, and I could smell coffee on his breath. "You know what I think? I think your old man trained you well. I think he's been waiting for you to come back and finish what he started." "I think," Sheriff Keogh said, her voice harder now, "you need to come down to the station and answer some questions officially. We can do this easy, but we can do this hard." "He doesn't have to go anywhere without a lawyer," Willa said. "He does if we arrest him." Keogh looked at me. "So what's it going to be?" I should have demanded a lawyer. I should have refused to cooperate. But I was thinking about that prison footage, about someone using my name and ID, about 4 hours I couldn't account for last night while a girl was dying. "I'll come," I said. They didn't handcuff me, which felt like a small mercy. We took separate cars. me driving mine with Deputy Torbert following close behind. Sheriff Keogh went ahead, probably to prepare interview rooms and recording equipment. The police station was in the same building as the town hall, down a corridor that smelled like burnt coffee and old paperwork. They put me in a room with a table, 2 chairs, and a mirror that was obviously one-way glass. I'd seen enough crime shows to know how this worked. They left me alone for 20 minutes. Standard intimidation tactic. I spent the time trying to remember the previous night with perfect clarity. I remembered lying in bed at Willa's apartment. I remembered the water stains on the ceiling. I remembered thinking about the symbol carved into the tree. Then nothing. Until I was standing in my childhood bedroom. Sheriff Keogh came back with a thick folder and the digital recorder. She set both on the table and pressed record. This is Sheriff Anita Keogh interviewing Evan Mercer regarding the deaths of Nathan Sear, Dulcie Brenham, Piper LaFlame, and Zara Hollis. Mr. Mercer, you've declined legal representation, is that correct? For now, I said. Let's start with last night. You say you went for a drive around 4 a.m. What route did you take? I don't remember exactly. I just drove. Did you pass any landmarks? Gas stations? Other cars? I tried to picture it, but my memory was fogging. I went to my old house on Sawmill Road. Why? I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly. How long were you there? Not long. Maybe 10 minutes. And before that, between leaving Miss Donahue's apartment and arriving at your house, I told you, I don't remember the drive. She made a note. You have a history of memory problems, don't you? Dissociative episodes when you were a teenager. That was 15 years ago. But they've started again, haven't they? She leaned forward. You blacked out last night. You don't know where you were or what you were doing. For all you know, you could have been at the cemetery. I wasn't. Your father confessed to protecting you. He said you killed those children in 2008, but you didn't remember it. What if it's happening again? It's not. Then prove it. Tell me where you were when Zara Hollis died. I don't know. She sat back, satisfied. That's what I thought. They kept me there for 3 more hours. Same questions, different angles. By the end, I felt hollowed out, scraped clean. They didn't arrest me. Not enough evidence, Sheriff Keogh said. We don't leave town. We'll be watching. Willa was waiting in the lobby when they finally let me go. She looked exhausted. I called a lawyer, she said. He'll be here tomorrow morning. I don't know if a lawyer can help. What are you talking about? I told her about the prison footage, about someone using my identity, about how I couldn't prove where I was when Zara died because I didn't remember. We need to figure out who's setting you up, Willa said. What if no one's setting me up? What if my father was telling the truth? Stop it. She grabbed my arm, hard enough to hurt. I've read everything about the 2008 cases. Your father's confession was full of holes. He couldn't describe the crime scenes accurately. He claimed methods that didn't match the evidence. The only reason he was convicted was because he insisted on pleading guilty. Why would he do that if I wasn't involved? I don't know. But I know you're not a killer. You've known me for 2 days. And in those 2 days, you've done nothing but try to find the truth. A guilty person would run. A guilty person wouldn't visit crime scenes and talk to police voluntarily. She released my arm. Someone is using you. Someone who knows about your father's case, who knows about your memory issues, who wants people to think you're the killer. We need to figure out who. I wanted to believe her, but doubt had planted roots in my mind. and I couldn't pull them out. That night, I locked myself in the spare room and didn't sleep. I stayed awake deliberately, forcefully, drinking coffee and pinching my arm whenever my eyes started to close. If I couldn't sleep, I couldn't black out. If I couldn't black out, I couldn't hurt anyone. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps outside my door, then a knock. "Evan?" Willa's voice, but something was off about it. "Are you awake?" I didn't answer. "I know you're awake. I can see the light under your door." A pause. "Come out. I found something. About the symbols." I stood and walked to the door, but didn't open it. "What did you find?" "I can't explain it through the door. You need to see this." My hand was on the doorknob when I noticed something. The light in the hallway was off. If she could see light under my door, she'd need the hallway light on to create that contrast. "Willa," I said, "turn on the hall light." Silence. "That's not Willa," I said to myself. "No," said a voice from the other side of the door. "But she's here if you want to see her. Come out, Evan. It's time to remember." I stepped back from the door. My phone was on the bed. I grabbed it and dialed 911, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. 911, what's your emergency?" "Someone's breaking into..." The door exploded inward. Not slowly, not picked or forced. It flew off its hinges like something had hit it with immense force. And standing in the doorway was a figure wearing a mask. Not a store-bought mask, something handmade, crude, with that symbol carved into the forehead. The same symbol from the tree. The same symbol from my fragmentary memory. The figure held a knife. "Remember," it said. And despite everything, despite the terror and the impossibility of the situation, some part of me did remember, standing in the woods, carving symbols, watching something happen that I couldn't quite see clearly. I ran. I crashed through the window. It wasn't planned, wasn't graceful. Pure panic driving me through the glass and an explosion of sharp edges and splintering wood. I hit the fire escape outside and felt pain bloom across my shoulder and arms where the glass had caught me. Behind me, the figure in the mask moved toward the broken window with calm, steady steps. The fire escape rattled as I took the stairs 3 at a time, my shoes slipping on metal treads slick with recent rain. 2 floors down to the alley. My phone was still in my hand, the 911 operator's voice tiny and distant. "Sir? Sir, are you there?" "Someone's trying to kill me," I said, hitting the ground and running. "Above the bookstore on Main Street, Coventry. Send someone." I didn't wait for a response. The alley opened onto a side street, empty at 2 in the morning, street lights casting weak yellow pools that didn't quite touch each other. I could hear footsteps behind me, not running, just walking at that same measured pace. Willa. I had to find Willa. Her bedroom was on the other side of the apartment, away from where the masked figure had broken in. Maybe she'd heard the noise. Maybe she'd already called for help. Maybe she was fine. Or maybe the voice that had spoken through the door had been telling the truth. She's here if you want to see her. I circled back toward the bookstore, staying off Main Street, cutting through yards and parking lots. Every shadow looked wrong. Every sound made me flinch. The cuts on my arms burned, blood soaking through my shirt sleeves. The back entrance to the bookstore had a door that led to the storage room. I tried it. Locked. I picked up a rock from the landscaping and smashed the window next to the handle, reached through to flip the deadbolt. Inside, the bookstore was dark and silent. Shelves loomed like sentries. I made my way toward the stairs that led up to Willa's apartment, moving as quietly as I could. "Willa?" I called softly. "Are you here?" No answer. The stairwell was narrow, barely wide enough for one person. Each step creaked under my weight. At the top, the door to her apartment stood open. The lights were off. "Willa?" I found her in the living room. She was sitting on the couch, her posture rigid, hands folded in her lap. For one terrible second, I thought she was dead, but then she turned her head to look at me. "You shouldn't have come back," she said. Her voice sounded flat, empty of the warmth I'd gotten used to over the past 2 days. "Someone broke into your apartment. We need to leave now." "No one broke in, Evan. I let them in." The words didn't make sense. I took a step closer and she flinched backward, pressing herself against the couch cushions. "What are you talking about?" "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know it would go this far. I thought I could control it." "Control what?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I needed to know the truth about what happened in 2008. I needed to understand how your father did it. The police reports were incomplete. The medical examiner couldn't explain the deaths. So I started researching, reached out to people who study this kind of thing." "What kind of thing?" "Dissociative states, psychological breaks, the kind where someone can do terrible things and have no memory of it." She finally looked at me, and I saw fear in her face. "I found someone who said they could help. Said they could bring back your memories, help you remember what really happened." My stomach turned. The person in the mask. "They said it would just be hypnosis, maybe some therapy. They said you'd finally know the truth and we could prove your father was innocent." Her voice cracked. "But then Nathan died. And Dulcie. And they kept saying it was necessary, that it was part of the process, that..." "You knew," I said. "You knew they were killing people and you didn't stop them." "I tried. I told them to stop. I said I was going to the police, but they said if I did, they'd make sure everyone knew I was involved. That I'd help plan it." Tears were streaming down her face now. "They're using your DNA, Evan. Hair samples, fingerprints. They've been planting evidence at every crime scene. Even if you prove you didn't kill these kids, you can't prove you didn't kill the ones from before." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. "Why?" "Because they believe your father's confession. They think you really did kill those children, and that the trauma blocked it out. They think if they recreate the conditions, recreate the pattern, your memory will come back. And once you remember, once you accept what you did, they think you'll..." She stopped abruptly, her eyes focused on something behind me. I turned. The masked figure stood in the doorway. This close, I could see details I'd missed before. The mask was made of leather, aged and cracked, with that symbol burned into the forehead instead of carved. The knife in their hand was long and clean. "Hello, Evan," they said. The voice was androgynous, deliberately pitched neutral. "It's time to finish what we started." "Who are you?" "You really don't remember?" They sounded almost disappointed. "I was there, Evan, 15 years ago. I watched you with Toby Fletcher. I saw what you did to him, what you're capable of when you let yourself remember. I didn't kill anyone. Your father thought the same thing at first. He wanted to believe you were innocent so badly. But I showed him the truth. I made him understand. They took a step closer. Now I'm going to do the same for you. The police are coming, I said. I called 911. They'll be here any minute. Good. Let them come. Let them find us together. Find the evidence I've left. Your DNA on Zara Hollis. Your fingerprints in all the right places. The masked figure tilted their head. You can't run from this, Evan. You can't hide from what you are. I'm not a killer. Then prove it. Remember. Or I'll keep killing until you do. Willa screamed. The figure moved toward her with that same calm, measured walk. I didn't think, just acted. I grabbed a lamp from the side table and swung it with everything I had. It connected with the side of their head and they staggered. Run! I yelled at Willa. She scrambled off the couch and ran for the door. The figure recovered faster than seemed possible, grabbing for me with their free hand. I shoved them backward and followed Willa. We made it to the street just as police sirens became audible in the distance. Red and blue lights flashed from 2 blocks away, getting closer. There! Willa pointed. They're coming. But when I turned to look back at the bookstore, I saw smoke. Orange flames were already visible through the windows of Willa's apartment. The masked figure was burning the evidence. Sheriff Keogh arrived with 3 patrol cars and a fire truck. I stood on the sidewalk with Willa, watching flames eat through the upper floor of the bookstore. Firefighters were already hooking up hoses, shouting coordinates to each other. Where's the suspect? Keogh demanded, her hand on her weapon. Inside, maybe, I said. They were wearing a mask. They started the fire. Of course they did. She didn't believe me. I could see it in her face. Deputy Torbert, get statements from both of them. Separate them. They pulled us apart. Willa went with one officer. I went with another. A young guy I didn't recognize who kept looking at me like I might bolt. We stood next to a patrol car while he took out a notepad. Start from the beginning, he said. I told him about the knock on my door, the voice pretending to be Willa, the masked figure breaking in, about jumping through the window and the fire escape. He wrote it all down without comment, his expression neutral. And you saw this person set the fire? No, but the apartment wasn't burning when I left, and it was when I came back. Where were you between leaving and coming back? Looking for Willa. I thought she might be hurt. Did you see anyone else? Anyone who could corroborate your story? No. He made a note. Behind us, firefighters were making progress on the flames. Black smoke billowed into the night sky, lit from beneath by orange light. Sheriff Keogh came over. The fire chief says it started in multiple locations. Accelerant used. This was arson. I know, I said. The person in the mask, save it. She turned to the deputy. Did you search him? Not yet. Do it now. The deputy patted me down efficiently, pulling items from my pockets and laying them on the hood of the patrol car. Wallet, keys, phone, and something I didn't recognize. A small Ziploc bag containing what looked like hair. What's this? Keogh held it up. I don't know. I've never seen that before. She opened the bag carefully and sniffed. Smells like gasoline. She looked at me. You want to tell me why you're carrying around accelerant-soaked evidence? Someone planted that. The person in the mask. They said they were planting evidence. Right. The mysterious masked person who no one else saw. She handed the bag to the deputy. Get this to the lab. I want it tested against samples from the fire scene. "You have to listen to me," I said. "Someone is setting me up. They've been collecting my DNA, my fingerprints, and somehow they got access to your pockets tonight while you were running for your life." She shook her head. "Here's what I think happened. I think you set that fire to destroy evidence that might implicate you. I think you cut yourself breaking in or out. And I think you're using this masked killer story to cover your tracks. Ask Willa. She saw them. We will. But right now, Evan Mercer, I'm placing you under arrest for arson and suspicion of murder." She pulled out handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent." The words blurred together. They put me in the back of a patrol car while firefighters continued working on the blaze. Through the window, I watched Willa talking to another officer. She kept shaking her head, gesturing, looking in my direction. I couldn't tell if she was helping or making things worse. At the station, they processed me. Fingerprints, photos, personal items confiscated. Then they put me in a holding cell. Not the interview room this time, an actual cell, with bars and a concrete bench and a toilet in the corner. I sat there for what felt like hours, trying to make sense of everything. Willa had helped the killer initially, thinking she could control the situation. The killer believed I was guilty of the original murders and was trying to force me to remember. My father had confessed to crimes I supposedly committed during blackouts I couldn't recall, and now I was arrested, just like he'd been. Around dawn, Sheriff Keogh came to the cell. "We've got a situation," she said. "Another body. Teenager named Callum Sutherland, found an hour ago near the old mill." My blood went cold. "When did he die?" "Medical examiner is doing preliminary work now, but witnesses say they saw him alive around midnight." She paused. "That's 4 hours after we picked you up. After you were already in custody. Then you know I didn't do it. I know you didn't kill Callum Sutherland. But the method matches. The location matches the pattern. Which means either you had help or..." She trailed off, clearly not wanting to finish the thought. "Well, my father really did kill the children in 2008, and someone else is doing it now." She nodded slowly. "We're releasing you. But you're still a person of interest. Don't leave Coventry." They gave me back my belongings and let me out the front door. The sun was up, the sky pale and washed out. I had nowhere to go. Willa's apartment was destroyed, my childhood home was abandoned, and every hotel within 50 miles would recognize my name. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello, Evan." The masked figure's voice. "Did you enjoy your night in jail? Your father's been there for 15 years, but you'll get used to it soon enough. What do you want?" "I want you to remember. But you're stubborn, just like he was. So I'll make this simple. Come to the place where it all started. Come alone. Tonight, at midnight. Or I'll keep killing until there's no one left in this town but you." "Where?" "You know where. Deep down, you remember." They hung up. I stood there holding my dead phone, my mind racing. The place where it all started, where Toby Fletcher died, where I supposedly killed him during a blackout I couldn't remember. I had to go. Had to face whatever was waiting there. Had to end this. But I wouldn't tell the police. Wouldn't involve Willa. If the killer wanted me alone, that's what they'd get. Maybe then, I'd finally learn the truth. Even if the truth destroyed me. I went to the state park at midnight, the same trail where Toby Fletcher had been found, where Nathan Sear died 15 years later. I walked through darkness with only my phone's flashlight to guide me, past the ranger station, past the warning signs about staying on marked paths. The masked figure was waiting where the trail branched off in the woods. "You came alone," they said. "Good. Who are you?" They reached up and removed the mask. I'd never seen this person before. They looked to be in their 30s, with sharp features and eyes that reflected my light like an animal's. "My name is Silas Brenham," they said. "Dulcie was my niece. Nathan Sear was my nephew. His mother remarried into our family. And I watched you kill Toby Fletcher when we were both children." The world seemed to stop. "I was 9 years old," Silas continued, "playing in these woods. I saw you standing over his body, and you looked right at me. You smiled, Evan. You smiled and put your finger to your lips, like we were sharing the secret. And then you walked away like nothing had happened." "No," I said. "That's not." I told my parents. They didn't believe me. Said I'd had a nightmare. When the other children died, when your father confessed, everyone thought the case was closed. But I knew. I always knew. The voice shook with something between rage and grief. I spent years researching dissociative disorders, trying to understand how someone could do what you did and not remember. And then I realized you didn't need to remember. You needed to become that person again. Once you accepted what you were, you'd stop pretending to be normal. You'd stop hiding. I didn't kill anyone. Your father knew. That's why he confessed. He thought taking the blame would save you. Silas laughed, bitter and sharp. "But you can't be saved, Evan. You can only be revealed." Flashlights cut through the trees behind us, voices shouting. The police had followed me after all, or maybe Willa had called them. Silas didn't run, just stood there as Sheriff Keogh and 3 deputies emerged from the darkness, weapons drawn. "On the ground, both of you." We complied. They kept us both, dragged us back to the patrol cars. At the station, they separated us immediately. I spent 2 hours in an interview room before they brought in my father's lawyer, the same one who'd defended him 15 years ago. "They don't have enough to charge you," she said. "Silas Brennan confessed to all 4 recent murders, said they were trying to trigger your memory, make you remember your original crimes. But without physical evidence tying you to the new deaths, and with your alibi for Callum Sutherland, they have to let you go." "What about the old cases?" "Your father's confession stands. The evidence against him was substantial enough for conviction. Unless new evidence emerges, those cases remained closed." They released me 3 days later. Not innocent, not guilty, just legally untouchable. The media descended, reporters shouting questions I didn't answer. I drove south without looking back. But here's what I didn't tell anyone. On that last night in the state park, when Silas said I'd smiled at him over Toby's body, I remembered. Not the killing, not the act itself, but the feeling, the satisfaction, the sense that something broken inside me had finally clicked into place. I remembered standing in the woods, with dirt under my fingernails and a child lying still at my feet. I remembered carving symbols into trees while my hands shook. I remembered my father finding me and the fear in his eyes, and I remembered that he'd asked me the same question he'd asked through the prison glass. "Did you do this?" And I'd said yes. My father spent 15 years in prison for murders I committed during episodes I can't fully recall. Silas Brennan will spend the rest of his life there for murders he committed trying to prove I was guilty. And I'm free. I live in a different state now, with a different job and a name that's not quite my own. Some nights I wake up and don't remember going to bed. Some mornings I find mud on my shoes or scratches on my arms that I can't explain. I tell myself that sleepwalking, stress, nothing serious. But I know the truth. The killer my father protected, the one Silas tried to awake him, he never went away. He's been here the whole time, waiting just beneath the surface. And someday, he'll come back.